I get the little chair in the middle. All right, so Barrio Writers. Sarah's told me about Barrio Writers for several years. When did you start Barrio Writers?
In 2009, in Santa Ana, California.
Wow, and Santa Ana is where you're from?
Yes.
Why did you feel the need to start this organization?
Well, being a youth that was labeled many things, I felt like when I started writing, I wanted to share my story growing up. And I did that by writing a memoir, but when I went back to my community to share it, I realized I'd become an adult, and I was literally speaking to youth like all the adults had spoken to me, telling them what to do and how not to do things, and I sounded like Charlie Brown, you know, or the parents of Charlie Brown. And so I realized that I wanted to do something that would empower youth to have their own voice and for them to listen to each other. Because I lost my dad at a young age. I was 13, and a lot of my troubled teenage years sprouted out of that. And I think no one took the time to ask when I was ditching school or when I was experimenting with drinking and smoking, and nobody bothered to ask, when did this start and why is this your outlet? And I think if someone would have asked that, then maybe I would have been able to share that I was depressed or that I was missing my dad or that I felt like my mom didn't understand me. But it was I was more perceived as an at-risk youth because I was first generation born in the United States, as a person of color, and I went to a high school that was predominantly white. So I think the stereotypes and expectations that were taking over a person's mind instead of asking the simple question of why do you feel this way or why do you feel you have to act out in this way. And so that led to a very horrible teen experience, and I think one of the things that we need to do is pay attention to youth more, to ask them questions, give them what we always say in Barrio Writers is own your space. Your voice is your weapon, because once you get to know them, you realize that they're just like any other human being, and they're reacting based on experiences. And so that's what I hope to do with Barrio Writers. But I also want to expose them to community resources. Being first generation, everything in my family, I didn't know how to go to college. I just knew I had to go to college. So I was born in the United States. I didn't know about financial aid till I paid out of pocket for 4 years, which I worked full time. I didn't understand how I just assumed everybody else's parents were paying for their college. And my parents couldn't do that. So I think a lot of it is too lack of information going through higher ed, and there's a lot of that happens even at grad school level. And so if I can give them one path, and show them like you could get to college through your passion. There are resources available for you whether you're a U.S. citizen or not. Even undocumented students have path to higher education, and also show them to be proud, right? Like I think. Growing up, again, as first generation, and where English was not my first language, and going through the American school system, I felt there was many disadvantages because I wasn't given that empowerment. If I said Spanish was my first language, I was rerouted through ESL, which that added a whole other stereotype, that added a whole other experience to school, which wasn't positive.
Not to put in my own personal experience, but when I started middle school in West Texas, I didn't speak a word of English. And the only reason they didn't put me in the ESL program is because I wasn't a Spanish-speaking person. I was a French-speaking student, and they're like, what the hell are we going to do with you? So they just threw me in with the English speakers, and I just had to fend for myself. But in many ways, I'm thankful for that there wasn't.
Because then you might get, for my case, I was getting pulled out of like math or.
Well, yeah, exactly, because I saw a lot of the kids that went to the ESL program, and because I grew up in West Texas where there were a lot of Spanish-speaking young people, and many of them were American-born people that just grew up in Spanish-speaking families, and they weren't allowed to go through, in many ways, the regular school system. So they would start out in the Spanish-speaking only elementary school and then quit before they got to middle school. And so they never got a full education.
And then you also lose your pride along the way, right? Like you're not, like even when we heard, Christian's poem today was about, what am I and who am I in this society? And And so being, even if it's just, a 6-year-old being pulled out of class in the middle of whatever subject just to go learn English, that already puts you in a certain category and you feel less than, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think what we try to do with body writers is find a way to empower them with whatever they're proud of, right? Like we even say like culture is not just your race and ethnicity and your religion. Culture could be the music you listen to, how you decide to dress. There are other subcategories of culture as well. It could be whatever you identify with and not necessarily you were born into. So I think that's what we base body writers on. So it's empowering teens through creative writing, higher education, and cultural arts, showing them that there is a path to college as well.
A lot of the poems that we just heard were also, many of them bilingual, which I love personally, and not necessarily languages that I understand, and I still enjoy the poetry very much. And I think that's something that's often looked down upon, especially anybody, not even young people, but who have more than one culture in their heritage and their families, and they try to write in both their cultures, like, no, you must write only in English. And it's like, it's not necessary. Nancy's poetry was great, and I didn't need to understand every word. It's not necessary to enjoy the poem.
And she taught you words. Right?
And she taught me words, yeah.
Which is great. That's what writing can do. Right?
Exactly.
Well, and I think that's kind of, it's not new. Writing bilingually is not a new phenomenon, but I think we're seeing it more and more in mainstream poetry specifically, but also I think it's just in mainstream literature because it's a way to express a globalizing world, right? And also just a mixture of experiences that we can no longer ignore in this country. And so for me personally, like that's an expression of myself because I do have a dual identity. My mom is white and my father is Mexican. So, those are ways I think that we express where kind of the borderlands of culture, where cultures are meeting, where cultures are clashing, what we kind of call like the contact zones of culture. And yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing.
So Leticia and Marilyse, how are you two involved with Barrio Writers, and what attracted you to this program? Were you friends with Sarah? Did you meet Sarah at the MFA program, through the MFA programs? Is that how you guys met, or how did you get involved? Marilyse?
So I wanted to be involved with Barrio Writers because I saw it as a workshop where we could talk about things that necessarily weren't being taught at the graduate level, and also because I wanted to reach an age demographic that felt like they could see themselves in higher education and that they can get themselves there with creative writing and also to incorporate cultural arts. I had a pretty bad experience in the MFA, and Sara and Leticia kind of reached out to me as an alumna and a current student. And once I learned about Barrio Writers, I was in.
Yeah, pretty similarly, Sara was kind of a mentor for me, even though she was on her way out of the MFA program and I was on my way in. I was having a lot of struggles with people who just were confronting my work in a really negative way because I was writing from a place of culture, and so, or at least my culture. And I was a bilingual elementary educator for 6 years, and when I saw what Sara was doing with Barrio Writers and kind of the different pedagogy that was occurring, it just sounded really interesting to me. And so I was a writing advisor for one day the first go around, and then as I started to learn more about it and get more involved, I wanted to really be a part of it.
So my next question, Sarah, and both of you as well, please. How does one reach out to the kids who end up being the Barrio Writers? How do you find these young people to be part of this program?
Well, when I first moved to Austin in 2010, I had started already networking with different organizations. But one of the questions I always get when I partner with universities or with even art centers in the community is like, well, who are the youth? How are they being accepted? And the thing is, we don't screen youth. Everybody's accepted. They just have to want to be there. And unfortunately, a lot of things in society is people like, well, we want to pick them through their writing, or we want see their grades, and I said, no, we don't do that, because we feel like this is a space where it's a safe space, as well as a place where everybody is equal. So we don't screen, we don't even ask for writing submissions. Everybody gets published as long as they attend the writing workshops, and they go through them for 5 days consecutively. So what I started doing is I literally started sending out information to cultural arts centers, to libraries and librarians and high schools and middle schools. I started walking in and flyering every coffee shop that I could find a corkboard in, or a corkboard in every coffee shop, and I started networking and attending other poetry meetings. I even knocked on doors for a while. But the cool thing about it is, which I have faith in since I started Barrio in Santa Ana, is that by word of mouth is how the youth end up coming. And every year we have youth that return from the previous years, which Miguel is living proof of it because he started in 2012, Miguel? Yeah, and so he started summer 2012, and he just finished summer 2016 with us, right? And he's most likely going to be summer, 2017 as well. And so it turns into more of word of mouth, and it actually turns into like registering youth. This year we caught up with technology, and we have registration online, so that helped a lot.
So how many kids sign up every year, would you say, here in Austin?
Austin has been interesting because we started with small numbers, and now we're finally getting into the 20s. So we originally started with about 6 to 10, and that stayed consistent for a couple years. And now we have anywhere between 20 to 25 registered.
That's awesome. And all ages, or is there an age minimum of
13 to 21.
13 to 21?
And this year we were lucky to also send through our writing advisors, we were able to send it out to UT students, and that's how we got Nancy. And so it was kind of amazing because when I was talking with people about Barrio writers, this summer someone was saying, like, that's a really big range of ages. How are you going to get everybody to like be on the same page? And we were like, it's not going to be an issue. And it wasn't an issue at all because everyone is there and motivated and wants to be there. Even if we have to give rides, even if we, even if people have to ride the bus and get here early, it's all about the motivation.
And the program lasts all summer?
No, it's 1 week out of the summer. And so, and also like to talk about like how you reach out. It's like, I always say it's like planting the seed, right? And it's because we're nurturing it. And Marilyse and Leticia are not paid employees, right? They do this because they want to do it, as well as myself. Very few years that any of us have ever received any money. The ones that have been paid are usually now through the school system, which means like we partner with universities. And so UT was, which was the first university that let us on campus through the Center of Mexican American Studies. They now provide a stipend to 2 UT students to be writing advisors. But as program directors, no, we don't get paid. And so one of the ways that we build connections is like Marilyse, just came up to me or just contacted me a few months ago, right, Marilyse? And she says, I want to do this in San Marcos. And I said, she's like, can you come and do it? I said, no, I can't come and do it. You can do it. Because she's been a writing advisor with me for the last year and a half now, right? Or a year at least. And she did spring break with me at the Assistant Bookstore. And then now she did the full summer with Leticia. And so it's unofficial because we haven't have it on paper yet, but she'll be the program director in San Marcos.
It's so exciting because San Marcos is kind of an in-between community, and the university there is kind of encroaching in on the community, so I kind of felt as a privileged person there who was going to school, and I didn't have to be connected in the community, but as a writer I thought that doesn't make sense, so I wanted to do something with the writers that we have there and the youth in the community, so that's kind of how I went to talk to an institution there, and it'll be like the center in Guadalupe Center in San Antonio. It'll be for a semester, so 1 day a week. I'm so excited to work with the youth in San Marcos, and really, since we're all from that university, it just makes sense. It's time for Barrio Writers to start there.
And so originally Barrio Writers started as a 10-week program out of a cultural arts center in Santa Ana, California. And so I still offer that opportunity to other cultural arts centers. So like we have transferred into a 1 week over the summer at university campuses or college campuses, which is a Monday through Friday that we meet from 1 to 4. And then it culminates with a live reading on Saturday for the youth to share all the work that they've worked on for the week. And then they submit their final pieces into publication for the following spring. With the way that it's going to happen at the Cultural Center in San Marcos, and but happens at the Guadalupe Cultural Center in San Antonio, which is really cool because the Texas Poet Laureate runs that one. Like, you can't get any cooler than that. So she runs it out of there, and they do 10 weeks during the school year, and the youth have to attend at minimum 5 workshops like they do for the 1 week in the summer, and they have to give a live reading of some sort within that time, and then they get to submit for publication as well. So Marilyse is going to do that starting in the spring in San Marcos, which is cool because then she can also help Leticia in the summer at UT.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa.
So what are the goals for Barrio Writers? Would you like to see this organization becoming a year-round organization that can do program after program after program? Is it, I'm guessing, a financial hurdle to make something like that happen? But how does something like that happen? Because I know these organizations do exist.
Yeah.
How does one make that happen?
Well, maybe I should tell you that we're a completely grassroots organization. We do not submit for grants. We take donations, but unfortunately, like, $1 million donations don't happen that often. But
They don't?
No, they don't. But what I'm trying to create a model that is sustainable, and that point is that buy our books. When people say, what can I do for you? I said, you can buy a book for a teacher, buy a book for a teenager, buy a book for your neighbor, and because that's the whole point, right? If we're teaching youth that their voice is their weapon, that their voice counts, then the best thing you can do is buy their words. Right? We never charge our youth for our books, and they have full rights to all their work. We never take their rights either. We just have permission to publish their work. And so when we publish their books, they get at least 1 copy of it. They get 2 right now, but we have been picked up by SFA Press, which is out of Stephen F. Austin State University. So now it gets a little bit more complicated because we're on their deadline system versus our deadline system. So we're right now we're nurturing that relationship so that our books come out in a timely fashion, which they haven't been because the publishing world is like that. But also keeping the book at a moderate price, so when school districts buy them, they can still afford them. Our books will never go over $20, and that's something that's really hard to do when you're dealing with an academic press. And on top of that, now we don't get full profits, so we only get a percentage of those profits. So that's why I always tell people it's even more important now for people to buy books. And the money that we get from the books goes directly back into the programs. I mean, fortunately, we've had great partners that supply snacks, that supply writing supplies. But what people don't supply are bus passes. And 85% of our youth, whether it's here, Santa Ana, Houston, they all take the bus to get to our program. And in Austin, we spend quite a bit of chunk of money on bus passes as well as in Santa Ana, California. Because unfortunately, a lot of our youth don't have support, whether it's financially or through family. We don't have a youth in the audience right now whose parents are here or whose extended family is here. And this is I don't want to say that as a negative thing, but unfortunately that's the reality, right? And so a lot of them, they depend on themselves to do anything. And the fact that they take their summer and they're here on a Tuesday night to do this says a lot about how much they want to do this.
And so as a reminder to everybody, we are selling books for Barrio Writers, and they're keeping 100% of the profits for all the books sold here at the bookstore tonight. You can also order the 7th edition?
6th and 7th.
6th and 7th edition by talking to Fernando or Chandra, and they can order the books for you, and they can be here by next week. So you can buy as many books as you want. And Leticia, Marilyse, and Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
What's going on next week? You guys are doing several more readings, right?
So on Saturday, the Texas Teen Book Festival is going on at St. Edward's, and we have flyers over on the table as well. We are going to be doing a workshop and zine making table. So you can get more information on the website and look at the schedule. But yeah, please come and invite your friends to come because you know we want to publicize Barrio writers, but also is going to be there, Jake. So and you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so this past year, the Texas Teen Book Festival was announcing their writers, and through Barrio Writers Facebook and our website, we promote resources to the youth. And so I went to the Texas Teen Book Festival website to see, who can I promote on Barrio Writers to tell my youth that they should attend, because it's a free event, why shouldn't they go? And there is no Mexican-American, Chicano, or Tejano writers at all. So I got a little angry, and I started asking them why, and they're pretty diplomatic and like, it just happened to work out that way. And I was just like, no, it doesn't just happen to work out that way. You're in a society that's 55% not white, and which used to be Mexico, and the second dominating, ethnicity or race here is Mexican American. So I did a petition with the community from across the nation. We had an online petition where writers and teachers and students wrote in at least 2 or 3 sentences why there should be Mexican American, Tejano, or Chicano writers. And they organized. They saw our response, and they organized for 4 different writers to come that are Mexican American or Chicano. It's why I'm here today, because they also brought me on as an organizer, which I'm pretty sure they regret right now. But it's also about something I tell my youth is that sometimes we're not in spaces because we don't feel comfortable entering the door, and sometimes because we're not invited. But we don't have to be invited. This is America. This is what makes America the United States, right? Is that we have rights to the resources and these spaces to represent us because we are part of this community. And if there's a book festival that's representing Texas, well, then there should be some Mexican American writers there as well. And the fact that it's the Texas Teen Book Festival and they didn't have anybody that some of my youth could relate to, I felt like they're doing a disservice to our community. And so now they have brought on Barrio Writers as well. I will be providing a free Barrio Writers workshop. Marilyse and Leticia are doing the zine making table with Red Salmon Arts, which is our fiscal agent and Resistente bookstore. Because another thing that they had enforced was you could only get an autograph if you buy a book. I'm like, some of my youth can't even afford a bus pass, and you want them to buy a book. So I had to argue for that too. And so now if you don't have a book, you can't afford one, or if you have a book that you already brought from home, you can make a zine and get in line to get an autograph. But which is, again, these are, again, some of the issues that our society has, right? You don't realize that when you set these policies, you're already creating a class system. So if you're telling folks they cannot get an autograph unless they buy a book there, then you're already excluding folks from the whole idea of this privilege to meet authors and find their role models on and off the page, right? And so sometimes it's a matter of just using your voice, and sometimes I do it too much.
Well, thank you all so much. I was going to do an open mic, but I think everybody's read. Does anybody want to read?